This is Conversations with Women in Sales, an award-winning podcast created by Barbara Giamanco, who hosted the first 67 episodes. Listen to interviews with amazing women about their journeys in their sales careers, often discussing sales leadership tips, ideas, and strategies. We aim to inspire women to consider a sales career and for some women to grow into sales leadership. Men, we appreciate your allyship. And now, your host, Lori Richardson.
Big shout out to our official sponsor, Reprise, the leading full funnel, product-led growth platform. With Reprise, your sales team creates, presents, and shares product demos, perfectly customized for each step of your sales motion. Go to getreprise.com/womenInSales to try for free today. I am so excited today to have Samantha McKenna here with us, Sam of Sam Sales. She's the founder of Sam Sales. Everybody should know that hashtag Sam Sales. Welcome, Sam. It's so great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Lori. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I wanted to have you on for a long time, and I'm glad we got this worked out. I am interested in your journey into sales because I saw that at one point you were a lifeguard for Disney. Was that an early career choice? And how did you get into financial services after that? And did that lead you into the sales path?
Oh, such good questions. I think I fell into the job of the lifeguard first and foremost because my friend told me that he got to ride the slides at the end of every one of his shifts. And I thought, well, that's got to be the most magical job ever. I'm going to do that. I'll tell you, some of the lessons that we teach in sales are things that I learned the very first and second day of my training at Disney. What an exceptional education if you ever get to work for that company. Phenomenal. The financial services thing is interesting. So when I went to college, I will just a little bit shamefully say that my mom was like, here's my credit card and just buy whatever you want. And I was like, that sounds great. So I had zero financial responsibility whatsoever. And I'll tell you, I remember one month I spent $4,000 on my mother's credit card, buying, things like going to the restaurants and clothes and all sorts of things. She was like, what on earth are you doing? And so she said, I'm going to pay for your rent for 2 more months and I'm going to pay for your car for 2 more months. And then you have to figure it out. Well, it's not a ton of money now, but my rent was like $400 and my car was $200. And I'm like, where in the hell am I going to get $600 a month as a college student? So we just started to think, how do I maximize my money? How do I maximize my earnings? And I started to read every financial literacy book on the planet. Susie Orman was my back in the day.
Susie.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In her book still. But I think, it was just the idea of how can I do this? How can I make $1 and turn it into $1.50 and so on and so forth? And then when I realized the power of investing and saving and really thinking thoughtfully about your money, I thought, you know what? I want to make sure that other people have this education. It's something I'm so passionate about. If I closed up Sam Sales today, it's probably where I would give at least half of my time to coaching anybody that's younger in school, in high school and college, underrepresented communities about, how to just manage their money better. It blows my mind that this isn't required in school.
Oh, yeah. And it blows my mind that I didn't know much about it at all as a single parent. I mean, I did all the wrong things. I put money into my son's sports and then help pay for his college, which I should have been saving for myself. And, so many things there's so many lessons and women, once they master it, it's such a powerful, it's your legacy.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, so I think when I was younger, I would have friends that were just like, oh, it's just $20. And they would spend just $20 on so many things. And I would save those just $20. I remember my former husband and I would go, and get dinner somewhere. We would split a Coke instead of having, 2 of them. And I'm like, we just saved $1.79. And he's like, you need to calm down. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But
well,
it really matters.
Yeah. And when you think how much food is wasted at restaurants too, that's a whole nother show.
You're right.
People spend all that money and then they throw out half of it, because they can't eat it all. So
exactly.
Crazy. So, okay. So you got into financial services. Well, then how did how'd you end up in sales?
I started to think about, did I want to make a career of financial services? And I realized that for me, this wasn't about something that would help me turn a profit. The passion that I had for financial services was something where I could truly help people. So I never wanted my financial future to be tied to me helping others with their finances. I wanted to do that strictly out of volunteerism. And I
Wow.
fell into sales, just like probably everybody. I was not that 6-year-old that dreamed of being a salesperson. I had my aspirations of doctor, ballerina, whatever it is. But I just fell into sales like everybody else. And one interesting thing that I realized about myself is two of the most pivotal career changes in my life are jobs that I turned down at first. So I turned down my very first job in sales, and then I turned down the first offer that I got to go to LinkedIn. And you kind of reflect on that at some point, and think, well, gosh, what if I had gone in a completely different direction? What if I had never gone to LinkedIn? Where would I be now? It's amazing to think about those forks in the road and where they've led you in the end.
It is. It is so interesting. And in fact, I turned down a job at Microsoft early on.
Oh my gosh, what your stock would be worth now.
I know. I know. And those early houses. But yeah, it is very interesting. But for me, I made a decision because I saw that people were working like 20 hours a day there. And as a single parent, I didn't want my son to write a memoir about me later on in life.
I know you're absentee parenting.
Yeah, yeah. It was a conscious decision. And I made a conscious decision to get into sales, actually, because I was a struggling teacher and I wasn't making any money. And I grew up in a family run business. So I thought maybe I could sell something in technology. And that's how I got into it. So I was one of the odd ones.
And I think that there's so many women out there who also think about sales and don't get into it because the idea of what we do in the sales profession is terrifying, and it's frankly why I turned down that job the first time as well. I thought, well, I'm going to have to hustle people into buying things for my own financial gain. And this just sounds so not like me. But I thought, when I changed my lens to thinking about how sales truly helps people, people are not talking to you in B2B sales because they have free time or just for their health. They're talking to you because they have a challenge and they're hoping that you or someone can solve it. And that was such an amazing, eye-opening change for me about what sales could be and what it actually was versus what I thought it was.
Yeah, I feel like we could launch a campaign maybe next year or something to just get rid of those old memes of
Right.
sales is sleazy and, dirty and you trick people into buying things. I mean, it comes from the movies, I think. And
Exactly.
and the
We're Married
old
with Children, Al Bundy and the Shoe Salesman. Nobody probably knows what that is except for me and you, Lori. And that's okay.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, people still talk about car salespeople, but that doesn't happen anymore when you buy it. There might be people, there's the occasional person out to make a few bucks over somebody, but generally it doesn't work that way. And so it amazes me. I mean, I wish I could get my name out there where people keep bringing it up and bringing it up and, like the old sales, the negative sales stuff. Is that amazing?
Totally. And think about just the face of what sales looks like now, right? And we know that women are more successful on average than men are at sales, right? The things that we bring naturally, the attributes, conversation, active listening, empathy, all these things that we bring to the table. So you think, why aren't there more of us in
Yeah,
this
so that's
profession, right?
it's a good lead into my question. Why aren't there more, Sam? What do you think?
I think it's so terrifying, and I think a lot of people fall into sales because it seems like anybody can do it. But I think when you look at a lot of women, the way that they apply for jobs, we know that they're only looking to see if they're 100% qualified for a job. Whereas we know that most men are looking at like, well, I think I can do this or 65% qualified for a job. So it might also be that, I'm thinking even about the conversation you and I had earlier about how we help transitioning military and transitioning teachers get into sales with our content. But think about a teacher who's like, I have no sales experience. What am I going to do even applying for a job? So the thing is, think about your skill set, right? Can you listen? Can you build rapport? Or can you have good conversations? Do you have a process? I even posted about this yesterday. When I look to hire someone in sales, I don't look for SaaS as your background and I don't look for sales experience first. I look for ability to have a conversation, ability to comprehend information, ability to run a process, ability to be curious, your intelligence. That's what I care about. Because give me someone like that, right, that brings those skill sets to the table, and I can teach you to do anything in sales.
I'm just amazed. And many SaaS companies, almost all that I've talked with, have dropped the requirement for a college education.
Thank God, right?
Yeah.
So don't need it.
It just means that you did something for 4 years.
And you're in debt.
Yeah, and you're in debt. Yeah, and that can be, companies like that when their employees are in debt because they're less likely to hop around. But yeah, it is really amazing. It is so amazing. And I mean, I know I've seen teachers go, and I'm sure you have too, from a very low salary to, $55,000 starting salary in a tech or other sales role. And it was life changing for people.
Incredible. And I think what's amazing to me, the eye-openingness of the harder you work and the tactics that you bring to the table, who you are really impacts the revenue you can make. And I think that was one of the most attractive parts to me about sales, that I wasn't just this title, which is paid this amount of money, and that's it, and maybe a 5% bonus at the end of the year if I do a good job. It was, this is the potential you have to earn. This is effectively your little business to run. So go for it. And I felt like even though I was working for another company, like an entrepreneur, because I had my book, I had my territory, and it was up to me to figure out what the heck to do with it. And again, the money you can make. I also remember I think I was 29, and I said, I'm going to make $100,000 before I turned 30. And I think I did in April, and my birthday's in July. And it's never been any less since then. If you master these foundational sales skills and sales, you can crush it forever.
Yeah, you can become an entrepreneur and be able to support yourself and build your business up like many entrepreneurs cannot do because they don't know how to sell. Or you can just rise within the corporate ladder and sell your ideas to people all the way up. So there's no downside to being in sales for at least a couple of years. And I think a couple, not a year, because I think it can be hard. Sales can be hard and you need to learn. Once you get some wins under your belt, it's a very gratifying profession.
Totally. I think you make such a great point about the entrepreneurial journey as well. If you cannot sell, be honest with yourself. If you cannot sell and run that process, it's really important that you have a partner, co-founder, somebody that can help you get there. Because I know how many entrepreneurs you and I probably talked to, Lori, right? Who say like, oh yeah, I need to get them that proposal. And I said, didn't you guys have that meeting 3 weeks ago? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I like die a little inside, like 3 hours is too long. Not that urgent to worry. But it's really important that you know how to sell it and run that process, follow through, because no matter what your vision is, if you can't do that or have somebody that can do it, it'll be really tough to get ahead.
Yeah. And that's why I think that sales is such an admirable profession because I've seen companies with an amazing product or amazing service and they don't know how to convert it into dollars and they fail and they go out of business and it affects the community. It affects the employees that lose their jobs. They can't buy cars and homes and, raise their families. They can't donate to charities. It's not just about, ooh, I want to make a lot of money. It's about having freedom. Money is freedom, right, Sam?
It's exactly right. Money is freedom. And think too, the important part about thinking through how you create a great sales process, it really is just coming back to being human. I don't know where we kind of got into this place where there was all these gimmicks and these lines and these things to say, are you opposed to hearing more information about our product? I'm like, oh my God, would you talk to someone like that? You never would. So think about this too. If you're just getting into this journey, it's just about remembering there's a human on the other side of your Zoom, your phone call, your email that you're talking to like a person. You don't have to put on this sales jargon to get ahead.
I learned some of that stuff in the 80s, the alternate closes. If I could, would you? Tuesday or Thursday better, all that stuff. And because there was people capitalizing on the fact that people didn't know how to sell and trying to teach them the way,
And it's still here. Some of those really bad practices, have you been eaten by an alligator, Laura, are still here.
That kills me. Please don't do that.
Ever.
Anyone out there is doing that. Just don't follow up. And don't be mad if your prospect doesn't get back to you because it's on you to reach them. It's not, they owe you nothing. in terms of a reply. They do not need to tell you that they're not interested. It's pretty obvious.
I will tell you just one more thing on that point, because I think
Yeah.
I see how many emails I see where somebody's emailed 6 or 8 or 19 times, and then they say, Lori, I guess you're just too busy to respond to me or something like that. It's no, that's not it. A, it could be it. But B, you just haven't proved any value. You haven't gotten me over the line. It's not that I'm busy or that now is the wrong time. You just haven't done your job correctly to tell me why I should give you some of this time. So pull those assumptions back out, because it's probably you.
Yeah, totally agree on that. Well, that's a whole nother show. I'm curious, because of your LinkedIn background, because you're so prominent on LinkedIn and you're really building your brand well. And I love following you, and I can't wait to see all the things that are ahead for you. And currently you're doing a huge job, which is really amazing and appreciated in this community. Why do so many women lurk on LinkedIn? And when I say that, I mean, and women know this, if you're listening to this, you look at lots of posts, but you don't comment. You might like something, but you don't comment and really share your voice. And I just want to say that if anyone isn't big on creating content on LinkedIn, one of the best ways you can get started is by commenting. So what do you think, Sam?
I think so. First of all, your point is spot on. I think the reason that we have a lot of people who just lurk and don't either comment or post their own content is it always comes back to that same question: who cares what I have to say? People care. That's how you're contributing to the conversation. That's how you're helping educate others, show them a different point of view, give them a sense of what your experience is like. And that's exactly what we coach people. Anytime we go into an organization to talk about LinkedIn and social selling, we say, if you are too nervous to start posting content first, instead of jumping off the high dive and into the deep end, let's ease and dip our toes in the pool. Just start commenting. And I'll tell you, just even think about it less from your perspective of what's good for you. Think about it as a selfless way to help others, to think about how to help people like Lori and myself. By you adding a comment and adding some thought leadership, you help those people that post content that you love get massive exposure. That one comment is gold to us. So if for nothing else, and a comment to our post, give your perspective, right? Because it'll also mean that your audience will see what our post is, and we're more than likely to be served up to you the next time you go into LinkedIn. So if you love what we say, right, that's a good way to kind of game the system for yourself. But I think you'll find that other people start to comment on your own content, right? And then you might say, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to do a post and see how it goes. And what Lori and I will both tell you, or anyone listening to this, is that it's going to take time. So if you post something and you get one like, don't jump out of the window. Just keep going, right? Or tag somebody that would has a big network and what it would be relevant to. Like, let us contribute. Let us help get you some visibility in return, right? Because that's the power of that platform.
Yeah. When I started my sales consultancy, which it's now 20 years this year,
Congrats.
blogging was just coming out. Blogging was very new. And I remember thinking, who would ever read anything I write? I have nothing to say. That's what I said. I said that when I started out. And you know what I did? I started reviewing sales books. And I remember I reviewed Jill Conrath had a new sales book. And then I sent her a note after I posted it on my blog. I said, I just read your book and reviewed it. It was really great. And I just wanted you to know that I posted it on my blog. And we had a 2-hour conversation that day, and she became a friend for life, So
Incredible.
yeah. And I would look at observations, and I really did it for my mental health, because I would go on really weird sales calls. For example, I talked to a company wanted me to help this woman who was selling, it was an association, and they wanted her to be, sell more memberships or what have you. When I met her, she said, I don't like to talk on the phone. And I was like, oh, well, this could be tricky. And so I wrote about that, not about her, but I always kept it, anonymous. But that's why I started writing on my blog. And then, and it would be months, if not years, and someone would say, "Oh, I love what you write," and I was like, "You do really? Like you read it?" And so that's how I started out. And Yeah.
Very, very similar journey. I think about this for yourself as well for you guys listening. If you have a unique point of view, if you have tactics that work for you from a leadership perspective, sales perspective, marketing perspective, whatever it is, that's what this platform is great for, just to share your ideas and educate other people. This isn't a platform for exclusive thought leadership or even a a self-promotion or even a focus, a general focus on your own self-promotion. It's really for that thought leadership to educate other people. And that's how you build a brand. Much like you, I just thought, who cares what I have to say? But I would give these tips internally to my team of like what I would do from a sales perspective. And I kept hearing, I never thought of that. Huh. And I was like, hmm. And I'm like, well, if you haven't, and if my bosses haven't thought of this, who else hasn't thought of this? So I just started thinking, well, I'm gonna post this and see if it helps other people. Plain and simple, right? And that's an easy way to get your start. Just help other people and educate them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know you've worked with a lot of the military wives and former teachers, and you actually comp your programs to those folks. Where did you get a special feeling for helping, particularly those two groups of
Yeah.
women?
My former husband was in the military. He was an officer in the Army. I got married right out of college and then was married for 13 years. And our first 4 years of marriage were in the military. So we were stationed abroad. And I think, there's a lot of people who probably have the same perspective that I did about the military, which was it was kind of where you go when you don't really know what else to do. It was kind of very blue collar. And then when I got in there, I mean, gosh, was I wrong? The unbelievable talent that is in our military and our armed forces. But on top of those people who are our actual service members, the military spouses. So I was stationed in Korea first and then Germany second. And the military spouses around me used to be like the number one was the number two at Fannie Mae, literally made decisions about your finances that you have no idea she exists. People with multiple master's degrees, but people that were heads at executives at Boeing. And they were stationed in the middle of nowhere in Germany, a town of 5,000 people with absolutely nothing to do. And myself included, right? That's also where I worked in my first financial services job and I made $12,000 a year. I don't even think that's minimum wage or even back then. But here's the thing, right? The talent that's available to us in our military spouses, if you're not looking at that as a source of employment, gosh, are you missing out? 70% of our staff at Zoom Sales, we have 15 of us now, is military or expat spouses. We have former, directors of marketing for country music labels, published poets, people who teach classes at universities in New York. For our VP of enablement, you used to be the director of communications and PR for 2 senators on the Hill. I mean, we don't deserve a single person on our team. And that's kind of the talent you have access to. So don't discount that community.
Yeah, that is really great. Well, thank you for talking about that because I think that opens up people that say, where do we find anybody else? We just get referrals from the guys that work here. That's why we have more guys. So, and I don't know about you, but I still run into, particularly in tech and SaaS, all male teams. And I don't know if you've seen that, but it's come up recently. Someone was telling me about a 17-person team that's all male. And they want to hire a female leader. But the person that talked to me said he was afraid to tell a woman that he knows about the job for fear that, if she took it, she wouldn't like the culture. And I thought, well, do you hear what you're saying? Like, things will never change. Why don't you leave it upon her to decide if she wants to do that or not? Tell her about the opportunity. And let's make it a better environment, maybe.
What a novel piece of advice. Let the women choose. Wow. We get so many directions we could take that in right now. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it's interesting too, as a female in sales and as a woman entrepreneur, when we get on some of these coaching calls and trainings, I remember the last one that we went to with the sales engagement platform, the girl on the team said, "Oh my gosh, another woman. Hooray." When we got on, and I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, it's you and all men. That's why your boss is a guy, everybody else is a guy. And I even think about that, like it's cringeworthy now, not only when you see that, but when you also see the lack of diversity in teams. So we recently spoke at a very, very large SKO. And the person that had put together the executive video said, she said, it's gonna make you hurt a little when you see it. There's one woman, I think it was 17 or 18, and it's one woman and 17 white men. And she's like, it's it's painful. She's like, but here's where we are now. And we know what we can do in the future. So I think we can be the change we want to see, and I think it's also our job as all women in sales to encourage more women to come into sales, to think about the opportunities here, to shine a light on each other, right? There's so much opportunity out there. So important for us to be supportive of other women, right? And to empower them and to use the things that we've gone through to make those paths clearer for them.
Yeah, men are so good at that. For example, when one man is on the stage at an event and he'll talk about his buddy who just published a great book that, was so amazing and over the top. And we don't do that as well, but I've been talking to a lot of women about that, and I'm seeing more people do that because if, it just is so helpful that it doesn't take anything away from you to recommend another woman. You lose nothing and you gain everything. And we need to do that more.
That bears repeating every day over and over. I mean, I think we still have so many women who have that opposite mentality. But to me, and I think just like you, Lori, like one of my favorite things to do is kind of behind the scenes, promote another woman, say something positive about her when she's not in the room, have someone reach out and say, Sam said all these wonderful things about you. We'd love to talk to you about helping us with that. And I think that the most gratifying part for me is kind of that likely sense of shock, right? From that woman who's like, wait, oh, what? Well, what a nice surprise, right? And then to think, how can I do that for others? So our positive actions will hopefully breed other positive actions. And it's just a nice domino effect.
Yeah. And our male allies are critically important too, because all of us women can sit around and talk about this, but men have the power in business and in sales. And our male allies, many who do listen to this podcast. So thank you guys for doing that. Promote it more. This is one thing I notice when I post on LinkedIn is that very few men comment on the Conversations with Women in Sales posts. And there's just something. We had a trade show booth at the recent AAISP leadership conference, and a lot of men would just walk right by. And we had books that were published by women about sales, which is a general topic. It's not about women in sales. There's not a book there about women in sales. They were all about sales. They just happened to be written by women. And one guy sent a woman over because he said, well, I don't need this, but I'll send my rep.
My gosh.
Because she's a woman. And it's like, they're not getting, it's not everybody's getting the fact that this is for everyone. It happens to be that we're women, and we need to talk it up until there are more women in sales.
You make such a great point also for us to just think about that from a diversity perspective, right? So just because we don't identify with that kind of community, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's our Black community, whether it's our Latina community, we all have a role to play in supporting and lifting each other up. So think about that too. If you walk by those particular booths and those community events, right? Instead of saying, like, let me think of how I can get involved, be an ally, help support your efforts. The exact same thing here, just here from a gender perspective. I think also as allies in our community, if you think you're an ally, right, always a good opportunity to say, am I really an ally though? And talk to some of your female peers and say, is there more that I could do? Do you feel like I am a strong ally? Is there something I may be missing? And I think of that because I know that there is sometimes some misguided male confidence of like, I'm amazing and I do all these things. And sometimes we need a little reset like we all do as individuals. Yeah. But I remember posting a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn saying I've been asked for recommendations for conference speakers for sales. And I said, yep. And I sent 4 women profiles. I was so excited. And I posted about that. And I said, man, did it feel good to only send women over? And of course, everybody was raving. And then I had one gentleman who said, why wouldn't you recommend a man? And I was like, I think you're missing the point. And so I kind of let him through that. And he gave me unsolicited advice, like many men often do, and said, I think you should do that. You should make that more clear in your post. And I really, really wanted to respond, but all of my friends were wiser and told me not to engage.
Right.
But keep that in mind too. The opinions, the mansplaining, the talking down to women happens a lot. So just do a quick gut check and make sure that you're on our side.
Yeah. And it hit me very recently, and I've been around a long time, Sam, but it hit me. There's so many times where the advice is, well, women need to do this, like stop apologizing, step up, apply for that job, even though you don't have 100% of the qualifications. And then I thought, well, who's been putting up with this all these years? Like every time I've apologized in a work setting, a man didn't say, "Oh, please, no need for apology." You know, it's not, you don't need to do that in a business setting. No
Yeah.
one said that. No
They
one.
accepted it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a culture that we've been in. So it's not all about women to fix ourselves. Yes, as a professional in sales, there are always things we can do to be better, but the environment needs to improve as well. So I see it. This is why, to me, this is why there are not enough women in sales roles, because it's like a three-sided stool. It's a three-legged stool. And, there are other issues that are environmental and we societal and the way we were raised, be nice, don't make waves. That's
Exactly.
what my dad told, but my dad told my brothers that too. So he was just very, don't just stay in the background. Don't let it offend you.
Right. You know anything about us? We at Sam Sales, we're a pretty fun culture, and giving each other a hard time is also our love language. But on the note of the apologies, we've got one of our team members. We're working not only on her confidence, but we're also working on her pulling back from how often she says sorry, which is probably 60 or 70 times in a 30-minute meeting. So when she says it, I'm like, stop saying this. You're not sorry. And she's like, sorry. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we apologize for doing the wrong thing there, for saying sorry. But so
Yeah.
I've started to have a good time with it. And every time she says sorry, I say, you should be. And then she's like, dang it. So you make a little light of it just to make sure that we get a different reaction, right? Because why are we constantly saying sorry? Why are we apologizing?
It's not correct. First of all, it's not correct. And if you want to be more clear and concise and effective in business, it's one of the things that you'd probably want to let go of. I used to fine myself $10, and that helped me buy some great things and also break me of the habit. So
we used to have the opposite of a swear jar for every time you send an email that said, just checking in. We're like, swear jar.
Same thing.
Yeah. Don't ever do that.
That's so funny. Oh, that's great. So just last question. What have you learned through your journey so far in selling and helping others?
I think, I think the biggest thing for me is building relationships and playing for the long game. I think that is the biggest differentiator that I see with top sellers, top players, top executives, is that they're not focused on the selfish today, this month, this quarter. They're focused on, how do I build you as a super fan for the next 30 years? And I talked about that the other day, about building 5x my pipeline, no matter what the close rate is of the company that I work for. Some people gave me some flack, and they're like, why? That's ridiculous. And I'm like, because you'll never have to pressure any one deal to come in, right? You can have all the irons in the fires. You can really take the time to build those relationships. If that deal falls out this month, then you'll have it for next month. But I also just love the idea of like the focus on buyer first. It's not about me. It's not about my number. Yes, I have to get there, but I'm helping you solve a challenge. And if I'm helping 98 people solve a challenge, a few of those deals will hopefully come in, help me hit my number, and that's it. Plus, if I do focus on building that relationship, if I am in a pinch and I really need some help, being able to go to somebody that I have a relationship with and saying, I know I'm not, your top priority here. Is there anything that I can do to help get this over the line faster? It'd be really meaningful to our business if we could do that. No pressure whatsoever, but if there's anything we can do, if I've taken the time to build that relationship, people are going to come back and come through for you. I think the other thing I would say is manners first with everything. I'm originally from Switzerland. I went to Swiss finishing school. If my mom caught me not saying please, hello, and thank you, she would just roll over in her grave. But I think from my perspective, it's so important to have those manners and to treat people again like the humans that they are, and put them first. At the end of the day.
That's great. Do you have any other podcast or book that you recommend that's written or co-written by a woman or led by a woman?
Yeah, I think everybody already knows about these, but I love the HBR Women at Work. If you haven't listened to those, they're not sales specific, but man, is that an investment in time that will convert for you. And I also just love the book and the podcast around radical candor. I think there are so few books that are really good in sales, right? We kind of repeat the same thing over and over, but Kim Scott, as a forward Googler, and she wrote Radical Candor, just great stuff. So
yeah,
I highly recommend
my
it.
hometown, Seattle.
Yeah. She is wicked smart. I'll pull from your former hometown, Boston, and pull a wicked in.
Love it. You got the bases covered there. That's great. That's good. Oh, Sam, it's such a pleasure to hear you and have this conversation. I think we talked about some really important things. And I'm so excited to keep an eye on your career as things grow and you take on the world. We're totally behind you, and continued success. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Huge thanks. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conversations with Women in Sales. You can find all of our episodes at womensalespros.com/podcast. Help us spread the word, and let's change the face of B2B sales.